Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. In our first story, a hard-working employee goes above and beyond to keep a struggling business afloat until the boss decides to get petty over a reimbursement and throws the old stick-to-your-job description card. Big mistake. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Told to stick to my job description? Enjoy your closed business. I used to work in a workshop where sheds were produced for farms and businesses. I was brought on as a general laborer whose tasks were to clean and maintain the yard and workshop, clean and spray steel, and to load up the truck with any completed sheds. When I first joined the company, there was 3 other workers there who had their own jobs to complete. One person's job was to make flashings for the sheds, one person would run the saws and fabricate any plates and cleats needed, and then there was a welder. Slowly but surely, the other workers began to quit due to finding better-paying jobs in different companies, and eventually I was the last worker there who had to run everything by myself, which I had no issue in doing, as I prefer to be able to work by myself. So one day I needed welding wire, and normally it would have been the boss's job to go and pick up any materials or supplies I needed. But on this day, the boss was away delivering a shed, so I went out of my way to go and pick up the welding wire myself so I could get a job finished that was behind schedule. But issues arose when I informed the boss that he needed to pay me back for the wire, as I had to pay for it out of pocket, and I was told that I shouldn't be doing anything that's not written in my contract, and that I won't be getting the money back for the wire as he never agreed to pay for it. So I went back to my original duties that I had when I first joined the company. After a few days of this, he came into the yard screaming at me as there was no sheds being manufactured, and I told him that he better get hiring as I won't be doing anything out of my job description like he stated for me to do. After 2 weeks of this, he hired a new worker who had no idea how to do anything, and he tried to get me to train him, but I wouldn't, as that was going out of my job description. This went on for about 3 weeks before the company ended up going into liquidation due to the boss failing to file accounts for the past 4 years. I'm assuming he didn't pay for the wire because he didn't have the money. I think the people leaving and not being replaced was the first sign that they were closer to closing down than expanding. Honestly, it sounds like you carried that entire company, and without you picking up his slack, it quickly collapsed. And our second story. After Christmas retail horror, manager rewards customer tantrum, making me look foolish. So this happened at one of the peak busy times of the year, a couple days after Christmas. Generally, you would think a retail establishment is dead during January, and you'd be right when it comes to purchases. However, we're flooded with folks coming to make returns and exchanges from Christmas. Personally, I don't mind working Christmas Eve. Thankfully, our store is closed on Christmas, but the weeks after Christmas are the hardest. They're hard because people who've been gifted range from people who've never been in our store and do not know the return policies, or are perplexed they can't exchange an item that was bought for them months ago and we no longer have it, or just straight up come in wanting full cash refunds on gifts they didn't purchase. So there's a lot of misunderstanding and bruised feelings when customers that aren't so understanding decide to make a scene knowing they'll ultimately get what they want if they can stand the public embarrassment of acting like a toddler in front of people. Now, this is a story about someone who wasn't really acting like a toddler per se, but is probably one of the most outrageous requests I've ever gotten working in retail. Knowing how busy the store is during this time, just imagine a well-stocked line of customers waiting to be helped with their return or exchange, and factor in the time it takes to solve each case so the customer's happy and leaves with an item or gift card of their choice. While all this is going on full force, an older couple stops by. Since the woman doesn't really interact at all in this story, we'll say the older gentleman is named Trusty. Trusty wastes no time showing me a black belt that looks pretty worn and points out that the top end is split. He says he's bought belts from us plenty of times and that this one was the only one that ever gave him trouble. He says he wants a new belt. Simple enough. I do exchanges on recently damaged items plenty, so I asked Trusty if he has the receipt or the card he bought the item with, since I can look it up either way. He says he does not. which also isn't a huge deal when it comes to exchanges, as long as I can identify the item came from our store by scanning its barcode or finding the exact same one on the shelf, then I can swap them. Here's the problem. The belt, in addition to looking like Trusty's worn it for a good number of years, has no barcode. It doesn't even have that little plastic tag that tells you the information on the item, since it seems Trusty has snipped that off. We don't have a ton of belts, but I can tell by looking at it, we don't carry the brand that's emblazoned on the back. I decide to humor Trusty for a moment and say that if we can find the same belt, we can exchange it for him, even though it's blatantly obvious that Trusty just wants a new belt after wearing his out from who knows what store. I walk back to the belts with him and we browse through. It's just as I suspected. We don't have the belt. At this point, the line's getting even longer and I'm getting annoyed, but I let Trusty know that I can do nothing for him since technically I can't do anything with what he's given me information-wise, aside from giving him a new belt, of course. I tell him he'll have to speak with a manager since there's nothing more I can do, and he agrees to wait while I call the MOD and play catch-up with the line. When MOD arrives, I explain the situation briefly before continuing to help customers. Trusty goes on to tell MOD that he is a loyal, insert store name here, customer, and spent $400 here this Christmas like we owe him that belt. It's really annoying to listen to him grumping about how we need to give him a new belt since he knows he got the one that broke here and belts should last a longer time than what he got. On top of that, everyone in the line is privy to this show. MOD is usually a very no-nonsense snippy manager, but after bringing her over a few times to get chewed out by customers, she seems to have changed her approach. She agrees to swap the belt out for whichever one Trusty wants. After she's done this, a customer in my line who's finished up strolls over to her and casually remarks, "You know, I have a belt that's a couple of years old too. Can I bring it in for a new one too?" MOD laughs and says, "Absolutely not." Meanwhile, I'm sitting in my line mortified because I told Trusty there's just no way for him to get a refund or exchange an item he can't prove came from our store, and manager rolls over for him so he can smugly watch me the whole time while she exchanges the belts. This is why I hate working after Christmas. Compared to this, Christmas is fun because everyone's out shopping for loved ones and in good moods. After Christmas, everyone's out for themselves and using the fact that we're rushed and ragged to pull these kinds of stunts. This is exactly why people feel entitled to behave badly in retail settings. Your manager completely undermined you by giving in to a ridiculous request, basically teaching the customer and everyone else watching that rules don't apply if you complain loud enough. And our last story. Neighbors won the fence battle, but Dad won the war with the pigsty. I grew up on a horse ranch. Our property was about 80 acres of beautiful land. After living there happily for nearly 20 years, the family purchased a narrow strip of land right at the back of our ranch. It was an odd plot sandwiched tightly between our back fence and a busy county road. We were honestly surprised anyone would even buy it since it limited where they could build their home due to zoning restrictions. We didn't get a chance to meet these new neighbors right away. Instead, our first introduction came via a letter from their lawyer. They had done a property survey and informed us that our fence line was encroaching onto their land by a few inches in certain spots. They insisted we move our fence immediately. My father arranged to meet with these neighbors, hoping to resolve things amicably. When he returned from the meeting, he looked weary and said to my mom, "Well, looks like we got the kind of folks for neighbors you never want to have." He explained that the neighbors had refused every compromise he proposed, including the offer to sell them additional land at an affordable price to alleviate their setback issues. They outright rejected the offer, stating arrogantly, "We don't need your charity. We've got plenty of money from selling our place in California. If you don't move your fence immediately, we'll see you in court." My father had even tried suggesting moving the fence gradually so the cost wouldn't be so burdensome all at once. They flatly refused, adamant that it had to be done immediately. Their attitude was hostile and uncompromising from start to finish. We eventually went to court where, unsurprisingly, they won. We had 2 weeks to move our fence, costing us considerable time and money. After begrudgingly moving the fence line, Dad seemed unusually upbeat one weekend. He woke me early one Saturday morning saying, "Get up, son. We got some work to do." We drove to town, loading our truck with fencing supplies and building materials. Curious, I kept asking what we were doing. Dad just smiled and said, "You'll see." We spent the weekend building a sturdy pen directly behind our neighbor's shiny new house. A friend of ours brought over half a dozen pigs the next day. While I was confused initially, it soon became clear what my dad was up to. As days passed, the area began to smell strongly, becoming increasingly noticeable each day. Although it didn't impact our home, it certainly affected our neighbors. Soon after, our neighbors stormed over furious. The husband shouted, "This is ridiculous! How can you live with yourselves, creating this smell behind our new home?" Dad calmly responded, "I tried being neighborly. You weren't interested. This is agricultural land, perfectly legal for raising livestock. If you have any more concerns, feel free to handle it legally." The neighbors did exactly that. They attempted another lawsuit, but this time they lost. My dad had done his research, ensured everything was fully compliant, and even checked with county inspectors he knew through volunteering at the local fire department. By late fall, we sold the pigs and spread the manure over the hayfield, preparing the land for winter. Dad purposely stacked extra building materials by the pen, hinting at an even bigger operation planned for the following spring. The neighbors panicked. Unable to bear the thought of living near an even larger livestock operation, they put their new home up for sale. By January, the property was sold to new folks who moved in during winter when the smell was non-existent. We quickly dismantled the pig pen, ensuring our new neighbors were greeted only by fresh country air come spring. Thankfully, these new neighbors were friendly, easygoing people who became lifelong family friends. Oh man, your dad played the long game perfectly. These neighbors got exactly what they asked for, and more than they bargained for. I can imagine how satisfying it must have felt watching their smugness turn into panic over that pig pen. Brilliant strategic revenge executed with impressive patience. Glad it ended happily with friendlier neighbors moving in afterward. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.